Coming up now on 713 here at the KPL Studios, as promised, Mark Garber, one of the candidates for Lafayette Parish Sheriff, joining us in studio. Sir, good morning.
Good morning. I'm ready for this.
Ready for this, huh? All right, so let's kick it off and talk a little bit first about, there's been a lot of discussion going on, whether it's, the water cooler, in news segments, whatever, about immigration and booking practices and different things. I want to know, what is your interpretation of what's being said in that area?
Well, to begin with, I've been unfairly drug into this. This is a sheriff's office issue, and Sheriff Newstrom has responded to this rather forcefully and debunked the myths propagated by Marshall Pope and by a candidate for sheriff who's been putting out a bunch of literature in the mail and also in some commercials. And so, they're doing this without any authority and without any backing of any facts whatsoever. So I'm not going to rehash what Sheriff Newstrom has already addressed, but what I will point out is that, this was a non-issue until Sheriff Newstrom endorsed my candidacy. And I will say that I am against and have fought against illegal immigration and probably done more than anyone in this parish to fight against it. During my time as a prosecutor, I prosecuted dozens and dozens of illegal immigrants for various felony offenses, and they were deported in chains after we were done prosecuting them. I also prosecuted dozens of cases involving the offense of operating a vehicle without lawful presence in Louisiana. We had this statute on the books after September 11th, and what happened sometime in, I believe it was 2013, and it was my case, and that's why I say I've done more than anybody. I refused to back down at the trial court level and at the appellate level from the challenge brought by the Indigent Defender's Office as to the constitutionality of this law. This was a valuable tool for law enforcement that should have and still should be used selectively to help us enforce and arrest what people we believe with good reason to be dangerous to our community. Well, what happened was this statute was challenged and successfully challenged all the way up to the Louisiana Supreme Court. Correct. And our elected Supreme Court justices ruled over my objections and the objections of the State Attorney General's office that this was not constitutional. It was preempted by federal law. I argued vehemently that the overriding state interest of keeping our roadways safe and investigating potential crimes was something that should trump that federal supremacy clause, and we were ultimately, again, overruled by our state Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. So this is a federal issue. It is a state Supreme Court issue, and I blame, if anyone's to blame here, it's the federal government for having a lack of a coherent immigration policy. Mm-hmm. But as your next sheriff, my administration is going to deal with this issue effectively and intelligently without exposing us to liability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you have to follow the law.
Correct. And without being left holding the liability bag, which is what ICE has done, what the Department of Homeland Security has done to well-intentioned agencies trying to honor permissive detainers. And I think that my opponents either don't understand this issue or they are deliberately being ignorant about it. Either way, doesn't matter. It's not an issue in this election, and I have a plan to, if it's a good deal for us, to get my deputies commissioned with INS. There is a program it's a Section 287G. You can enter an agreement with ICE, and you can be deputized. Now, if we do this, then we have to have a place to put the detainees that we capture. Right. And we've got to be able to pay for that. So I will work with the federal government. Like I said, I will do this intelligently and methodically. I'm not going to react to some emotional appeal that's put out by a hate group. And that's what's going on here. And it's fear-mongering with a political motive behind it. So glad we were able to move past that this morning. I wanted to get that out of the way so we can focus on positive things.
Center for Immigration Studies, I did contact them yesterday. I was referred to an email address, which I did send them an email about yesterday as to what criteria they used to determine why Louisiana was considered a sanctuary city. I did not have any return call or a return email from them. So that's the way that we have also followed up on that particular story. All right, so let's do what we normally do when we talk to folks and we're interviewing them. Tell us a little bit about Mark Garber. What is Mark Garber's background? The law enforcement side of it. Why did you pick the jobs that you have picked, and what really motivates you?
Okay, I want to give a shout out to my wife Rachel and my daughters Claire and Cece. They're getting ready to go to school right now, and they are listening to Daddy on the radio. And hello, girls, and hello, Rachel. Hope y'all are having a good morning. To answer your question, what motivates me? I am a career law enforcement officer. I have had a progressive career starting at around the age of 19, where I started as a deputy sheriff in Acadia Parish, working for Sheriff Ken Goss. The whole time I went through undergraduate at LSUE in Eunice, and then finishing up at LSU in Baton Rouge. Thereafter, I was a game warden with the state of Louisiana, and then was hired in Arlington, Texas, as a police officer, where I stayed for about 10 years there as a police officer, police supervisor, and held various assignments. And then my career progressed on even further into the next level, which was federal law enforcement. I've been a federal agent with the Department of Defense, not a contractor, but a full-time federal agent. And that was when I deployed to Iraq, and that's where the Bronze Star originates from, and also with the United States Secret Service. Leaving the Secret Service and coming back here was one of the best moves I ever made, because it was a move that I made with somewhat of a heavy heart at the time. I think I've alluded to that in the past, because I really loved the job. I loved the agency. I loved the job. But I needed to get back here to my community to raise my girls. I wanted them to experience what this community has to offer. And I came back here and took yet another step up the law enforcement ladder and served as a prosecutor, felony prosecutor, here in Lafayette Parish. So that is what law enforcement makes me tick. It motivates me. This is where my talents can be best used to serve my community. And I love this community. I love what we have here. And I told my wife, I can protect this community. I can protect our way of life. Not only Lafayette Parish, but Acadiana, the Acadiana region, I view is a region that we all live in and share. And we are going to become, I think, increasingly regionalized as a country as we go forward. And we have a great thing going here. Even when the economy's bad, we still live pretty well compared to the rest of the country. We have the best culture in the United States and probably in the world for raising a family, and the way we take care of each other in good times and in bad. These are all values that I want to pass on to my daughters. And you can only do that if you grow up here, like I did and like I want them to do.
All right, let's talk about some of the programs at the sheriff's office. You did receive the endorsement of Sheriff Mike Newstrom. There have been some programs that they have been working on and developed over the last few years, and really a little bit further back than that, too. How do you view those programs, and what kind of attitude are you going to take towards these programs if you are elected sheriff? You know, because there are questions about how we're using our personnel and where they are going, but yet, you know, like when we've talked with Julio Nadine and talking about how we're getting the recidivism rates down. You know, so these people that they're not learning new skills in jail, you know, they're learning something that's actually usable within the community, and we don't want them back in the jail. So where do you sit with this issue? What is your philosophy?
Well, my philosophy first and foremost is public safety, protect the public from the bad people. When I was a prosecutor, I used to tell some defense attorneys, I'd say, look, your client simply has to be removed from society for a while. You know, he or she cannot be allowed to be on our streets and share it with my wife and my children and even your wife and children. These are bad people. But most of the people that we are incarcerating are there for nonviolent property crimes, or they are addicted to drugs, and the drug addiction is the genesis of their crime. I am not from a school of rehabilitation. Where I come from is a school of pragmatism. I'm a practical guy, and I want to do what the most efficient, cost-effective, and best thing is to protect this community. What I see in these programs, the work release programs, where we provide a drug-tested employee to area businesses, to the road crews, where you see these guys on the side of the road, you know, cleaning up our ditches and so forth. These programs reduce recidivism. I know that y'all have heard this number before, but it's worth repeating again. The recidivism rate under these programs among Lafayette Parish offenders have been reduced from 65%, which is the national average, down to 21%. You cannot hire enough police to make that reduction. We can't afford to build enough prisons to reduce crime that much. So we are going to continue the programs that have proven to work. Now, will there be some consolidation perhaps? Perhaps there will be. Can we do what we're doing more efficiently? Absolutely. You can always make changes to be more efficient. That's where my skill set, my unique background and my skill set comes into play. I'm uniquely positioned to carry the ball forward and do the best thing to protect Lafayette Parish by continuing these programs in a more efficient and smart way.
Now, let me ask you about men and women on the street. I know that you say safety is number one, and you're a pragmatist, but some have said that there just are not enough people. There's not enough staffing out there on the streets in the parish. Do you agree, disagree, or in what direction will you take that if you become sheriff?
I would love to have, the day I take office, I would love to have 250 more post-certified, experienced men and women deputy sheriffs to plug into the system. And frankly, we could absorb another 250, maybe even 300 positions and strengthen up everywhere and really not even notice it. So yeah, are we understaffed? Sure. Every agency in this nation is understaffed. Everywhere I've ever worked in my extensive background has been understaffed and under budget, and there's always tough choices to make. The fact is that we can't afford to pay the deputies we have now. The sheriff's office is having to look for other sources of funding to finish out the year with payroll. So anyone who's talking about hiring more police without having a plan to address the current problem is speaking irresponsibly. We have to use the police officers and deputy sheriffs we have more responsibly and more intelligently. That's what I'm going to do first and foremost. We have ways that are not being utilized to use technology, to use a better case management system, to use analytics, to use the cops we have in this parish more effectively. We can collaborate more effectively with the agencies like Youngsville, Broussard, and so on, and especially with Lafayette Police Department. You know, the collective strength of a group is always stronger than the sum of its individual parts, right? So if we work together more, it's not that we're not working against each other right now in Lafayette Parish, but I see a huge opportunity here for someone like myself to come in and introduce a new level of collaboration and cooperation. That is where you get more use out of what you have. And that's what I'm going to do first and foremost before I ever go to the taxpayers and ask them for more money for more cops.
Mark Garber is in our studio this morning. He'll be here up until 8 o'clock. He is one of the candidates for Lafayette Parish Sheriff. So let me follow that question up with, I know, you're going to try to use what you have and use your resources, but at some point, I think everybody realizes, well, the money tree, somebody burnt it down, darn. So it's not like we can go out there and pluck some bucks. How do we raise additional revenue? Nobody wants to pay any more taxes. When you get a federal grant, that's great. But then when the grant runs out, we're still on the tab. Somebody's got to pay that ticket. What do you foresee in the future?
Well, and just a word about grants. Grants often come with a lot of strings attached.
They sure do.
And I don't like being told what to do by the federal government. I think that they tell us what to do enough as it is. So I'm not gonna voluntarily submit myself to their control and maybe have their judgment supplanted for mine for what's best for my community. But as far as the money tree goes, I think that the way you increase your budget, because I'm coming from a business background and a more educated background. And the way I look at it is, if the community does well, my budget will increase. The sheriff's office is funded in large part by 15% of the ad valorem taxes. If the pie gets bigger, then my slice of that pie grows. That 15%,
sure,
the numerical value of that increases. We are on the verge of developing downtown. I've worked and spoken and had a good dialogue with the Downtown Development Authority on that very subject. When we address our downtown issues and as our community continues to attract businesses, this revenue will continue to increase. I expect to see an uptick in revenue at the end of 2016 based on the reassessments currently being done by Conrad Como's office. We have an excellent tax assessor's office here in Lafayette Parish. There will be more money coming, whether or not the oil prices go up or down, because we have property here that has not been assessed yet.
That is correct.
And we haven't realized that.
And it has to be done every 4 years.
That's right.
By state law, it must be done every 4 years.
Correct. So there is more money coming. I will be able to make decisions on how to use the sheriff's office share of that money and the priorities will be pay for the existing deputies and staffing, addressing the staffing needs of the sheriff's office.
We are going to continue our conversation with Mark Garber, who is one of the candidates for Lafayette Parish Sheriff. When we come back, we do have a break as we have your Hannity Morning Update. That is on the way, and local news also coming up. We'll talk about, perception is reality, the fun question from this week. But what really is it? What's one misconception? And what is one thing he thinks folks who are talking on the street have right about who Mark Garber is and about his candidacy for sheriff? All of that on the way. Coming up now on 729. It is now 7:33. Right now, 68 degrees. We've got partly cloudy skies out there. Dave Baker saying a mixture of sun and clouds. That's what we're going to deal with all day today. High temperature at 84 degrees. 20% chance of showers for today. One of our top national stories. For the first time in any major poll, retired neurosurgeon Ben Carson is leading Donald Trump. Today's Quinnipiac University poll shows Carson leading Trump 28% to 20% among likely Republican caucus voters in Iowa. Today's numbers reverse the picture from a month ago when Trump led Carson by a 27 to 21 margin. The House Select Committee on Benghazi will get a chance to grill their most high-profile witness today. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will answer tough questions for about 8 hours from that committee. The man accused of killing a 4-year-old during a road rage incident in Albuquerque is in police custody. Police arresting Tony Torres, who was brought in Wednesday as a person of interest and later reportedly confessed to the crime. In local headlines, Crowley police still seeking a fugitive wanted in connection with a Sunday morning shooting after the Rice Festival. A warrant has been issued for 19-year-old Jermaine Washington Jr. for first-degree homicide and first-degree attempted homicide. Washington is from Welsh. He's described as a black male, 6'1", weighing 190 pounds with long black locks. You can see his picture at kpelm965.com. There was an arrest in the case yesterday. Police arresting 23-year-old Jonathan D. Bro of Crowley. Residents in the city of Lafayette and the unincorporated areas of Lafayette Parish can properly dispose of household chemicals, things like pesticides, herbicides, chemical cleaners, and more at the Household Chemical Disposal Day, which is set for this Saturday, October the 24th at Cajun Field in the parking lot. Now, the event will be held from 8 a.m. until noon. Attendees should enter the parking lot at Gate 4 off of West Congress. An informational flyer listing the items that will be accepted as Chemical Day is coming. You can find it at LafayetteLA.gov. The latest job report for Louisiana shows continuous growth in the state overall, but major losses continue in the oil and gas industries. Louisiana Workforce Commission Executive Director Kurt Isink says despite over-the-year gains from September to this year, the mining and logging sector, which includes oil and gas, lost 1,200 jobs in the last month, 8,800 over the last year. He says two of the bright spots on the report include Baton Rouge and Lake Charles, with both areas setting growth records. Common Core, charter schools, tuition vouchers, those are some of the education issues a new governor and state education officials will face next year. Voters on Saturday will make their choice for governor. The winning candidate will appoint 3 members of the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. 8 other board members will be chosen Saturday by voters in districts around Louisiana. And party labels won't always help as voters make their choices. For instance, the major Democratic candidate for governor, John Bel Edwards, opposes Common Core, but some Democrats support it. Republican candidates Scott Angel, Jay Darden, and David Vitter are often in accord on education reform issues, but Darden alone backs Common Core. We've got weather and traffic on the way, and we continue our interview with Mark Garber coming up. Coming up now on 743 as we continue our conversation with Mark Garber, one of the candidates for Lafayette Parish Sheriff. So, perception is reality. So a guy emailed saying he hates that phrase. That's dumb. It's not perception is reality. That's ridiculous. Well, unfortunately, perception is reality. Because, you can run outside and tell somebody the sky is blue, but based on how they grow up and the things they think, some of those people tell you that's green. So perception is reality. So what's the misconception out there about Mark Garber?
Well, there's two misconceptions that come to mind when you ask me that question. Number one is that I'm not from here. And the other one is that I was a contractor when I served in Iraq. The first one, me not being from here, I'll point out, my grandfather was a dairy farmer here in Lafayette, in the city of Lafayette, on what used to be called the Abbeville Highway. If you were going toward Abbeville, he was on the left, just past the Acadiana Mall. He grew up in Broussard on what is now called Garber Road, right off of Highway 90. And all of my relatives, except for my father and mother and two younger brothers, live here in Broussard and Youngsville. So, I'm from here. I'm of this community. That's number one. Number two, is the contractor myth. Everyone has associated civilian and the word contractor together ever since the Blackwater civilian contractors were strung up back in 2001 or 4 or something like that. So we've often assumed that if you're a civilian, you're a contractor. What I was a full-time sworn Department of Defense criminal investigator. I took an oath to defend the Constitution, and when I deployed, I was under NATO orders and under the command of military commanding officers. My rank equivalent as a GS-12 was as a senior captain or a new major, depending on what unit I was with. And the Army that I was serving with, especially, they want to put you in a box. They have to know where you fit in their chain of command. So I was there as a full-time DOD employee. I wish I would have been making the money that the contractors made, but I was in combat with these units as a civilian, and I was awarded a Bronze Star. That has been vetted and revetted and checked and rechecked, and yes, it is legitimate, and I'm very humbled to have received that honor.
All right, thank you for that. What do you think, is out there that's absolutely right on point? You knock on doors, you talk to people. I'm sure you look at social media. Who doesn't? So what's right on point, the things that are being said about you?
My qualifications. When I meet people on the street, when I meet them at their doorstep, they say, "Oh, I've heard about you. You're the guy with all the qualifications." And yes, that my resume is extensive, and I want to offer that to the Lafayette Parish voters. I want to bring that experience to bear and carry our law enforcement forward in this community, because if we have good law enforcement, if we have solid public safety, then the rest of the development works. The rest of it goes forward. But you have to have quality of life, you have to have safety in order for the rest of the government to do its job effectively, in order for our next city parish president to attract new businesses and to get economic incentives in place. So that's really the foundation for our community.
Yeah,
I'm interested. One, you've brought up public safety, so I'm interested. One thing to ask you about simply body cameras. Do you believe that those are of use for deputies of yours in the future, or not really?
Well, we have body cameras now at the Lafayette Sheriff's Office, and we have what I'll call the good kind. We have the kind that upload to a cloud. They don't have an SD card stuck in the side of it that can be removed or lost or whatnot. This footage uploads automatically. It's only accessible by the administrators of the department, and that to me is good, effective accountability. And that is what I'm looking for as a leader and administrator. I want to know if I've got a problem with my office, or whether it's a problem with a citizen when a dispute arises. I also want to know what happened at a critical incident from the perspective of the camera. So I think they're not only of use. I would like to see, as technology goes forward, us to have even a 360-degree view of what's going on at any given time. That information, unbiased information, is absolutely critical to resolving issues and preventing them from becoming conflagrations like we saw in Baltimore and in Ferguson.
I have to ask you to follow up on that then. I'm sure there are many different levels of security at the Lafayette Parish Correctional Center in addition to cameras and different things, but we have heard so many issues being developed about inmates being hurt physically, sexually, etc. How do you intend to address it? Are more cameras the answer there? Is it making sure that the locks actually work on the doors? Potentially, this is a powder keg issue. What do you think?
Well, it's going to come down to questioning what the leadership has been doing and what they lack. I think that there are two captains, if I'm not mistaken, who are in charge of the jail, who report to the director, Rob Reardon, who oversees many more things other than LPCC. And I have questions for them as to why are these security lapses occurring, and why aren't they, or have they, asked for additional resources or tools. Because if they haven't asked for things and these lapses are occurring, then there's a problem.
Mm-hmm. What do we do, though? There's going to be a problem if they have asked for the resources and they haven't gotten them either. That's potentially an issue, too, and maybe for the risk management section, if you will, for the sheriff's office. We live in a litigious world.
Well, and that's where I'm going to stop short of commenting on what is ongoing litigation, the subject of ongoing litigation. You know, we have a very well-managed, triple-accredited corrections division. That's one of the few in the nation that holds all three accreditations from the three leading, the three accreditation agencies that affect corrections. We're also CALEA accredited on the law enforcement side. So if anyone disputes that we have an excellent corrections department, I think that it might be motivated by other factors than on the merits. Certainly with any system of this size, especially, there's going to be issues. There's going to be problems.
Humans work there, you know?
Exactly.
Humans are incarcerated there. Humans work there. Yeah. You know, it just is what it is. Let's talk a little bit about what you referenced before, and that is, you know, places like Baltimore and Ferguson. It's not easy being a law enforcement person. It never has been, but now it's even more of a thankless job, it seems like. It's tough. And when you have this mentality out there that, oh, the police are out to get me, it makes a job for these people even harder. How do you keep and retain folks, and how are you hoping to work with our community to be able to dispel some of the anxiety, maybe hatred that is out there?
Well, I think we're better off than in other parts of the country. Yeah. We're better off here in Acadiana. We don't have the crisis that is occurring elsewhere. Now, that being said, the last thing I'm going to do is be complacent about it for even 1 second, because as soon as you relax, as soon as you're complacent, that crisis will come to your front door. So the way that we prevent a Ferguson or a Baltimore is not with more cops and more riot gear. The way you prevent it is through community outreach, through having the first 10 contacts that the young people have and the community has with police be positive contacts. We're here to serve the public. That is how you build up trust ahead of time, because something will happen. As you alluded to a while ago, you know, deputy sheriffs, police officers are human beings. Mistakes will occur. And the public will misbehave and falsely accuse us of making mistakes also. So the way to deal with it is through transparency and accountability from day one and on a continuing basis. And we have excellent law enforcement here in Lafayette Parish. I will continue to build on that excellence and enhance it, and that is how we will protect our community.
All right, we have just a couple of minutes left. We have to take a break. When we return, our final wrap-up with Mark Garber. It is time for our final segment with Mark Garber. He is one of the candidates for the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office. And this is your kind of time here, sir. Just to kind of wrap up, give any final thoughts that you have to listeners and folks that obviously are going to be voting this Saturday.
Yeah, thank you. I want to ask everyone listening for their vote and their family's vote. This is an extremely important election for Lafayette Parish moving forward. It's an important choice for the health and welfare of our community. I would ask to examine each candidate's qualifications and backgrounds and look at my career starting as a deputy sheriff to game warden to city police officer to Department of Defense federal agent, went to war in Iraq, U.S. Secret Service special agent, and culminating in a felony prosecutor here at home. And consider the fact that being a felony prosecutor and having the federal experience and the street experience gives me a unique perspective to lead the sheriff's office. I know this parish from the top down. I know the criminal justice system in this parish from the top down. Being the felony prosecutor, you get investigative product from each agency in the parish. So I have a familiarity with the hot spots parish-wide, not just the hot spots in one particular jurisdiction or another jurisdiction. That gives me a platform to hit the ground running as the next sheriff and attack these problems with it tactically and efficiently. And that's what I want to leave the voters with thinking about, that this experience, my professional resume, is what's going to come to bear for their benefit and the benefit of their children and the safety of the public.
Mark Garber has been with us. Sir, thank you very much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thank you all, listeners in Acadiana.
Coming up now on 750H, we've got your Fox Business Report being brought to you by Cartridge World. Save money on ink and toner. Give them a call today at 984-9000.